would argue that these campaigns demonstrated a remarkable insight into the mindset of consumers who make up the customer base of these businesses. I would like to argue that these campaigns had nothing to do with the consumer. It's time to start taking planning seriously again, and by that, I mean it's time to start taking planning away from the consumer. There is no such thing as consumer advocacy. A planner's role is not to be an advocate for the business, for the consumer, it's to be an advocate for the business itself. A planner's role is even more about client services than as an account executives. Let's figure out how, as strategists, we can bring the most value to our clients and partners. The first step towards realizing this is to realize that people don't know what they want, but they know it when they see it. In short, we need to stop giving the consumer so much respect. As Douglas Atkin writes in his book, The Culting of Brands, people will gravitate towards a brand they feel represents something. A powerful cult brand is created in the following ways. 1, creating a community of consumers who feel like they belong. GM created a single car that spawned an entire community of loyal followers. They did this not because there was demand for another mid-sized sedan in the American car market. Instead, it was a bid to take back market share from encroaching Japanese brands. The founders of Saturn realized that the only way to do this was to create an unparalleled customer service experience. 2, a unique vision. Walt Disney World, the happiest place on Earth, shows Walt's unique vision of the world of tomorrow, also known as Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. That's what it means. By continually remaining loyal to this vision, Disney created an extremely fanatic customer base. 3, recognizing an enemy. Steve Jobs did this in his speech officially launching the Mac computer in 1984. He positioned IBM as eventually wanting to take over the world with corporate suit-wearing Big Brother types. The Mac was the obvious non-conformist in this group. Even though the idea was no longer true, it nevertheless set the tone for the creative generation. 4, making use of symbolism and rituals. Try walking into a Harley-Davidson bar in corduroys and a polo and see what happens. Harley didn't just create a brand, they created a religion. With self-styled uniforms, a creative behavior, and biker gangs who accepted those with like minds, they turned a mediocre product into a brand with the largest market share in the industry. 5, authenticity, and by this, I mean security. What company is so secure in their brand that they're willing to let the consumer have free reign? That's what BMW did for their motorcycle brand. By creating online forums that were not brand censored, they eventually became the most well-known high-end motorcycle brand in the country. While all of these brands eventually began to think about catering to the largest number of consumers, they eventually turned down that idea in favor of doing what they, and not the consumer, felt was right. It's time to shift the focus away from the consumer and start thinking about what we as planners can do to create businesses that believe in themselves and in their agency partners. Brands should be resources to consumers, not dictators to them. What's the worst thing that could happen if we let them talk amongst themselves on Facebook? How can we create brands that believe in their companies and work for a brand that they truly believe in? Not only would internal culture change for the better, but I believe that consumers would start to think of them more positively as well. The way to do this is by taking from traditional planning groups and taking a leaf out of other industries' books. A full-service agency should not be responsible solely for ad messaging. We should be full-service business partners that look to better our clients in every way. This includes suggesting product expansions, advising on naming products, and continually searching for opportunities to disrupt the marketplace. How much better would our relationships with our clients be if we could take the burden off of the CEOs and CMOs in thinking about the strategic futures of their companies? Not only would the Netflix fiasco never have happened, but they'd be more secure in their jobs and less concerned with impressing shareholders and their board of directors. Consequently, they would be much better clients. In the same way, we can turn our incredible powers of insight towards our own agencies. From my perspective, there are 3 types of agencies: big ones, and small ones with big names. As much as we try to differentiate ourselves through showy websites, we all ultimately sound the same. How can we turn our own agencies into cult brands and, in this way, decrease the agency turnover rate? Like the good psychologists we are, our job is to see and advise from an objective perspective. What aren't they seeing? Where can we add value that hasn't been added before? We have the power to change the course of business in this country and to actively work for the betterment of the relationship between brands and their consumers. In this way, we will also better the relationship between clients and their agencies. The line between planning and client services is blurring. Brands are the new religion, and it's time for planners to start writing the Bible. As Apple's Think Different campaign so rightly quotes, you can quote them, argue with them, vilify or glorify only thing you can't do is ignore them.